The soil of New Terra smelled like wet rust and something else, something deeply wrong that no habitat filter could scrub away. My name is Edward, and this is the confession of how we, the first colonists of New Haven, Sussex, didn't find a new home, but fell into the gullet of something ancient and hungry. I remember the day the Sagittarius landed, the euphoria smothering the natural fear. The planet was a desert of blood-red rocks under a perpetual leaden sky, dead as the scans promised. Dead. The greatest lie ever told by human science. The first months were hard graft, sweat, and red dust ingrained in everything. We built Complex Alpha near what we called Heron's Mere, a dry, circular depression that looked like an extinct lake bed. That's where the silence began to weigh. Not just the absence of wind or animals, but a watchful silence, a silence that settled into the bones. It was also there I noticed the first changes in Claire. My wife, once vibrant and full of plans for our hydroponic garden, started waking up at precisely 5:47 every morning, without an alarm. It wasn't punctuality, it was robotic precision. She'd sit at the compact kitchen table and drink exactly 250 milliliters of water, in measured sips, spaced with clockwork exactness. Her eyes, once full of the starlight that brought her here, seemed glazed, fixed on a point beyond the reinforced plastic wall. Then it was Charles, our chief engineer, a bloke from London who loved a virtual Sunday roast. He started walking. Not for exercise, not for pleasure. Every afternoon, at 15:03, he'd leave the complex and trace the same path of stones, a perfect 1.2-kilometer circuit, always at the same pace, always with his head tilted at the exact same angle. I'd try to talk to him during these walks, call his name. Nothing. It was as if I didn't exist. His face was an empty mask, muscles still, only his legs moving with a frighteningly mechanical fluidity. The fear, then, began to sprout inside me like poisonous fungus. Dr. Reynolds, our biologist from Manchester, was the first to theorize something beyond stress or space sickness. She found patterns. Patterns in rock formations that didn't match natural erosion. Patterns in the atmospheric dust that regrouped in geometrically improbable ways. Patterns in our own vital signs, monitored 24/7. Heartbeats slowly synchronizing between colonists who didn't interact, body temperatures fluctuating in unison with minuscule shifts in the ground temperature, imperceptible without sensitive instruments. "We are not alone, Edward," she whispered one night in the makeshift infirmary, her hollow eyes reflecting the monitor's cold light. "And what's here isn't inside us. We are inside it." She coined the term geological timescale cognition. The hypothesis was monstrous. New Terra wasn't a planet. It was an organism, a being vast beyond comprehension, so ancient that its vital processes, thoughts, metabolism, digestion, occurred at a glacial cadence, spanning millennia or more. To it, our frantic arrival, our habitats, our bodies, were merely nutrients that had fallen onto its surface, like grains of sand in an oyster, or spores on rotting wood. And it was beginning to digest us. The proof came with John, the youngest of our team, a strong lad from Birmingham. He began spending hours immobile, leaning against the complex's outer wall, facing the weak sun. One day, I noticed a fine layer of red dust adhering to his skin, like a second epidermis. It wouldn't wash off. Days later, I saw tiny cracks on his hands and face, not like dry skin, but like fissures in terracotta. Inside these cracks wasn't blood or flesh, but a substance black, viscous, and deep, pulsing almost imperceptibly. It wasn't infection. It was transformation. It was assimilation. His body, his mind, were being slowly rewritten, converted into something that served the planet's slow, implacable rhythm. He no longer answered to his name. His eyes were dark pools reflecting only the red immensity and the watchful silence swallowing us whole. Now, routine is our law, our prison, and our death ritual. I see my companions, or what's left of them, executing their cycles with ever more terrifying precision. Mary prepares the same bland, nutritious meal 3 times a day, without variation, without error. Peter checks the airlock seals precisely every 53 minutes, his movements fluid and devoid of any human hesitation. The atmosphere inside the complex has grown thick, heavy, laden with a sweet, rotten smell like overripe fruit mixed with grave soil. It's the smell of the planet breathing slowly, consuming us. I feel a sluggishness infiltrating my own thoughts. Ideas that once flowed fast now drag themselves through treacle. Sometimes, I stand motionless for minutes, staring at my hand, trying to remember the command to close it. The urge to go outside, to walk into the red rocks under the leaden sky, is a constant, growing pulse in my chest, a silent call echoing in the marrow of my bones. It's the planet calling. It's the digestion accelerating. You feel it too, don't you? That strange calm settling over you as you listen? A sense that everything is fine, that everything is normal? Check your hands. Are they perfectly still? Are you breathing in a strangely regular rhythm? Be careful. Silence can be contagious. Rhythm can be a trap. They told us this planet was dead. They lied. Maybe they are lying to you right now, about where you really are, about what's truly happening outside your window. Wake up, before it's too late. Dr. Reynolds was the first to vanish. She didn't flee. She simply integrated. We found her white lab coat folded with obsessive precision beside a peculiarly smooth rock formation, like an altar. On the rock, dark, damp stains seemed to form a pattern that hurt the eyes to see. Her instruments were buried a few centimeters deep, entwined with filaments black and fine as roots or veins that pulsed softly. She became part of the landscape, part of the slow metabolism. A processed nutrient. My official log stopped weeks ago. I record these words on an offline terminal, a bottle thrown into a cosmic ocean of indifference. The complex lights flicker in a rhythm I now recognize. It's the same rhythm as the black pulses I saw in John's fissures. It's the heartbeat of New Terra. Beat slow. Beat steady. Beat implacable. I feel the red dust under my nails, not just dirtying, but adhering, as if taking root. My bones feel heavier each day, as if turning to stone, into something that belongs. My thoughts are the worst. They become circular, repetitive, like Charles's walk. Thoughts that aren't mine. They are its. They are the planet thinking through me, using my mind as a damp laboratory to dissolve my humanity. The air I breathe inside this sarcophagus of plastic and metal no longer smells only of rust and sweet rot. It smells of myself beginning to decay, to be broken down into useful components. I am Edward, from New Haven, Sussex. Or at least I was. Now, I am a colony of bacteria in a cosmic gut. I am a nutrient being prepared. The silence here isn't the absence of sound. It is the sound of chewing. Slow. Inevitable. Eternal. And when the last trace of who I was is dissolved, when my mind is completely rewritten to serve the geological rhythm, then, finally, I will be home. Digested. Absorbed. Part of the organism that devoured New Haven and all the dreams we brought in our arrogant ships. The leaden sky out there isn't a ceiling. It's a pallet. And we are just the dinner. Slow. Silent. And infinitely more terrible than any nightmare Stephen King could conceive. Because this nightmare is real. And it is happening. To me. And if you can feel the perfect rhythm of your own breath as you hear this, perhaps it's already starting to happen to you. The light at Bone Key Lighthouse came back on last night, and Jonah the fisherman vanished with it. My name is Charles. I'm a reporter for the Coastal Chronicle in Portsmouth, and I came to this rocky hellhole chasing a story. Instead, I found a nightmare that clings like the salt from this rotten sea. It started with the reports, phantom lights cutting through the fog on moonless nights, voices of men dead before my grandfather was born, and shadows that obey neither physics nor mercy. The lighthouse has been abandoned since 1953, when the steamship Hope wrecked on the shoals with 134 souls. They say the keeper, Oswald, went mad and threw himself from the cliffs after screaming that the shadows were hungry. Now, 60 years later, the lights are back, and so are the shadows. I reached the island on a bleak winter afternoon, aboard Old Man Fergus's rickety boat. The old man, eyes full of stories he wouldn't share, refused to step ashore. "Bad business, lad," he muttered, arms crossed tight as I hauled my pack and gear onto the beach of black stones. "The lighthouse calls, and when it calls, it takes." His bony finger pointed up the cliff face where the rusted iron tower stood against a sky the color of a bruise. No light then, only a presence. An oppression weighing on my shoulders like a damp blanket. The island was silent in a way that hurt, a silence intensely watchful, as if the rocks themselves were holding their breath. The first days yielded nothing. I photographed the lighthouse from every angle, poked through the keeper's cottage reduced to moldering rubble, walked the treacherous coastline. Nothing. Just the biting wind howling through rock fissures, a sound that, if you listened long enough, began to resemble wails. On the third night, the light ignited. Not a gradual flicker, not a smooth sweep. It was like a colossal eye, dormant for decades, snapping open atop the tower. A beam of white light, cold and impossibly intense, cut the darkness and fixed on the churning sea. And then the voices began. Not from any direction. They seemed to bleed from the salt air itself, hoarse, desperate whispers layered like a macabre prayer. "Secure the helm. God have mercy. It's coming from the deep." Something took the captain. Not human. Not human. "Lights. Don't follow the lights. It's a trap." Individual words blurred after a while, leaving only pure terror crystallized into sound, echoing in my skull. Cold sweat traced my spine. I clutched my recorder, knuckles white, but the device captured only static, a white noise humming in eerie unison with the ghost light. That's when I saw the first shadow. At the edge of the lighthouse beam, where the rocks plunged into the black sea, something moved. Not a cast shadow, not a human silhouette. It was a blotch of utter darkness, blacker than the surrounding night, sliding over the stones with a viscous, unnatural fluidity. It seemed to crawl, like a slug made of pitch. A second shadow joined it, then a third. They moved towards the beach, where I stood frozen. You felt it just now, didn't you? That cold draft on the back of your neck. As if something brushed past you, right there in your safe room. Look at the darkest corner of your space. Is it truly empty? Or does it just seem that way? Because fear has weight, it has temperature. And what's here on this island, it knows how to travel. Through sound, through story, through your own held breath as you listen. Be wary of the shadows your own light casts. They might just develop a will of their own. That's how Jonah vanished. The stubborn fisherman, who mocked the stories and came for lobsters in the rock pools. I saw him that fateful night, a trembling outline under the lighthouse beam, near the water's edge. The black shadows, now a dozen or more, rippled towards him, slithering over the rocks like oil snakes. Jonah didn't run, didn't scream. He stood rigid, staring fixedly at the water, as if entranced. I heard a different whisper, closer, a voice that seemed to come from inside my own head, sticky and sweet like poisoned honey. "Come, it's calm here. So calm. Just take one step." It wasn't Jonah's voice. It was something mimicking, something learning. when the nearest shadow touched him, coiling around his ankle like a ribbon of liquid darkness, Jonah simply stepped forward, into the void, onto the jagged rocks below. No cry, just a sickening thud, followed by the sea's hungry swallow. The shadows retreated into the water, carrying something that thrashed weakly, silently, in the waves. The lighthouse light winked out as if it had never been. Now I'm stranded. Old man Fergus hasn't returned. The radio only picks up static that seems to whisper words when I close my eyes. I feel the shadows every night, not just on the rocks. Inside the rotting wooden shack where I hide, I see movement in my peripheral vision, patches of darkness that dissolve when I look directly. The intense cold they bring, a grave cold, chases me even in the warmest daylight. The voices have worsened. They're not just from the shipwreck anymore. I hear Jonah's voice, faint, pleading for help from the depths. I hear old man Fergus warning me not to come. And I hear my own voice, whispering promises of peace if I just walk to the cliff edge, if I let the lighthouse light guide me. I found Oswald's journal, buried under loose floorboards in the shack. His last entries are scrawled in a frantic, near-illegible hand, stained with something smelling of salt water and decay. He speaks of doors in the depths beneath the lighthouse, opened by the mass death and despair of the wreck. Doors to a place that isn't a place, a time that isn't time. A place where ancient things that swam in oceans before stars had names, wait and hunger. The lighthouse isn't a warning, he wrote. It's bait. The light draws the lost, the hopeless, the curious. And the shadows are the fishermen. They don't kill quickly. They drag you through to the other side, to an eternity of dark and cold, where your soul is slowly devoured, your scream made eternal as part of the warning chorus that draws others. My body is weak. The food is gone. The rainwater I collected tastes metallic, like blood. I feel a constant dampness on my skin, even in dry air, as if a second skin, cold and dark, is wrapping around me. The shadows are bolder. Yesterday, one touched my hand while I tried to sleep. It was like plunging my arm into dry ice, a piercing cold that left the skin numb and marked with a strange pattern, like black veins. The lighthouse light flares at shorter intervals. Its beam seems to search for me, scouring the island. And the voices, they're almost constant now. Especially my own voice, repeating like a mantra, "It's calm here. So calm. Just one step. The pain ends. The light guides. Just one step." They said it was fishermen's tales. Lies. The doorway is open. And it's hungry. The lighthouse is calling. Not just to me. You heard the light ignite at the start of this tale. You felt that cold draft. You saw, in your mind, the shadows moving. Watch the darkness in your home tonight. Watch for the whisper that seems to come from a silent radio. Watch for the sudden urge to visit a lonely lighthouse, a desolate shore. Because once you hear the true call, once you see the shadows that shouldn't be, it's too late. They know you know. And they're patient. They can wait. Until you're alone. Until you're weak. Until that cold, lying lighthouse beam seems the only comfort in a dark world. I see it now, sweeping across my window. It looks so inviting. The whisper says it's time. The cold wraps me like a cocoon. It's so easy. Just one step. Just one step towards the light. They were right. Peace is on the other side. In the cold. In the silence. In the dark. Goodbye. Don't follow my light. Erase this story. Burn it. Before it burns you. Before the shadows hear your heart beating faster. Before they feel your fear. The light is so bright. My 6-year-old daughter Sophie drew our family dead at school today. It wasn't an angry scribble, nor macabre fantasy. It was an accurate record, like an architect drafting blueprints for a city that shouldn't exist. And every other child did the same. This is happening in Blue Hill, Yorkshire, and it's the truth rotting our town from the inside. My name is Richard, I'm a surveyor, and I know every inch of this ground. But nothing prepared me for what lies beneath our feet, or for what the children see when they close their eyes. They call it shadow slip. It started subtly, pencils worn down to nubs, reams of printer paper consumed in days. Sophie, once full of drawings of suns, flowers, and our dog Luna, began filling sheet after sheet with impossible structures. Towers that intertwined like diseased roots, tunnels twisting at angles that hurt the eyes, circular plazas where tall, thin figures with oversized heads and vast, empty eyes like wells seemed to float. Figures without mouths. Always without mouths. I asked what it was one day, when her silence weighed heavier than usual. She looked at me, not with fear, but with infinite patience, almost sad. It's shadow slip, Daddy. Where we live when we're not here. An answer that chilled me deeper than any monster under the bed. It was Mr. Davies, from the village primary school, who raised the alarm. It wasn't just Sophie. Every child under 10, without exception, was drawing variations of the same subterranean city, with the same large-eyed, mouthless inhabitants. The drawings were terrifyingly consistent in detail. The type of stone on the walls, black basalt with phosphorescent veins, according to childish descriptions. The shape of the houses, more like niches or hives. Even the light source, a cold, bluish luminescence emanating from the air itself, or from the creatures. Adults, questioned, remembered nothing like it. Not even a vague sketch. It was as if shadow slip only existed for the innocent, or the damned. The town descended into paranoia. Council meetings became sessions of collective hysteria. Psychologists spoke of imaginative contagion, but the explanation was too flimsy for the geometric precision of the drawings, for how children from different parts of town, without contact, drew the same specific buildings. That's when the desperate mayor called in Dr. Reynolds, a geologist from Leeds University. She was skeptical, hard as the rock she studied. She scoffed at the stories but agreed to map the bedrock. "I'll prove it's just mass hysteria and stable ground," she said confidently. They used top-of-the-line equipment, seismic probes, ground-penetrating radar. Dr. Reynolds's smile died on day 2. The maps spat out by the printers showed not just natural caverns, but structures. Vast, complex, stretching miles beneath Blue Hill, following patterns that echoed, disturbingly, the children's drawings. Tunnels intersecting on levels, large empty chambers, networks resembling those circular plazas. The correspondence was impossible to ignore. Reynolds went pale. "This isn't natural," was all she managed, her formerly firm voice a thread. "It seems inhabited." Inhabited. The word dropped into the room like a stone onto frozen water. No one volunteered to explore. Not the bravest firefighters. Not the reward hunters who showed up. The children's silence was more frightening than any scream. They seemed to know. They watched the adults with those large, too serious eyes for their age, as if awaiting an inevitable outcome. Sophie stopped talking about shadow slip. She stopped talking almost completely. Her drawings, however, continued. More detailed, more urgent, as if she was copying something pressed against the inside of her skull. I started seeing things too. Not drawings. Shadows. Movements too fast at the corner of my eye, always near the floor, as if something scuttled quickly along the edges of rooms. A sudden chill in enclosed spaces, a smell of damp earth and something ancient, metallic, like old blood, coming and going without source. And the dreams, dreams of endless tunnels, the cold blue light, and those tall, silent figures, just watching with their black, hungry eyes. Always without mouths. You have children, or no children. Ever seen a strange drawing, full of dark scribbles, shapes that make no sense in the world above? Maybe you said, "How creative," and stuck it on the fridge. But look again. Look for the big eyes, for the figures without mouths, for lines that seem to plunge into the paper, suggesting stairs going down. Is it really just imagination? Or is it a message, a warning, or an invitation? Because they see, they see what's hidden. And maybe, just maybe, what's hidden is seeing you too right now while you think about this. Feel the floor solid under your feet. But is it truly solid? Or just waiting? Dr. Reynolds disappeared, didn't run, vanished from her temporary office in the council hall. The door locked from the inside, the window intact. She left only a geological map spread on the table, a specific area deep beneath the village green circled in vivid red, and a single drawing, done by an adult hand, shaky but unmistakable, one of the large-eyed, mouthless creatures. Below it scrawled, "They don't need mouths. They feed on silence, on fear, on forgetting." Reynolds, the skeptic, had seen, and Shadowslip claimed her. The contained panic became a tsunami. Families tried to flee. Cars choked the narrow country lanes. But something happened. The children didn't cry, didn't protest. They stood still, looking at the ground, with an unnatural calm. And the adults, one by one, began to return. Silent, pale, with a distant, vacant look, as if trying to remember something very old, or forgetting something essential. My wife, Claire, came home alone one night. I was with Sophie, trying to pack for a desperate escape. Claire walked in, leaving the door open to the cold night. Her gaze passed through me, fixed on some distant point. "No use running, Richard," she said, her voice monotone, inflectionless, like a bad recording. "Shadowslip is everywhere, under everything, inside." She tapped her own temple. "They're just cleaning house, preparing. Soon it will be our turn to remember, to go home." She didn't resist when I tried to shake her. She just smiled, an empty smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sophie already knows the way. She always knew. Now I'm locked in the cellar with Sophie. Claire is upstairs, walking endlessly, back and forth across the sitting room, with a perfect mechanical cadence. The lights flicker sometimes. The smell of damp earth and old metal is constant. Sophie draws without stopping. Her pencils are just nubs, but she continues, scratching the paper fiercely, filling every inch with tunnels, towers, the silent creatures. Her eyes are too large, too dark. She doesn't speak anymore. But sometimes she pauses, looks at the concrete cellar floor, and tilts her head, as if listening to something. Something coming from below. Something calling. Her drawings changed. Now they include smaller figures among the tall creatures. Figures in familiar clothes. One wears a dress like Claire's. Another has my old flannel shirt. And the eyes of these smaller figures are getting larger, darker. The mouths are disappearing. I'm writing this as a precaution, out of desperation, because I feel the cold rising from the floor, even here. I feel the weight of a gaze that isn't human fixed on the back of my neck when I turn away from the cellar's dark corner. And I hear, very faint but undeniable, a scraping sound, like nails or claws, scratching the underside of the concrete. Scraping, digging, coming closer. Sophie just smiled, for the first time in weeks. A small, serene smile as her tiny fingers keep tearing the paper with the image of a door opening in the floor of our cellar. She knows. They know. Shadowslip isn't a city the children see. It's a destination. A reality overlaying ours, feeding on our ignorance, our fear, and now, our memory. The adults didn't remember drawing because Shadowslip was erasing their minds, preparing them for the return. For integration. And when the last light goes out up here, when the last scream is swallowed by the silence those mouthless things adore, Blue Hill will be just an empty shell. And the city below, the true city, will be complete. With its new inhabitants. With its new family. Including my little Sophie, with her beautiful big eyes that no longer reflect the sunlight. They reflect only the cold, phosphorescent blue light of Shadowslip. The call is strong. The cold is inviting. The silence is absolute. They are almost here, tearing through the concrete, tearing through reality. Don't look at the floor. Don't look at the cellar. Don't think about drawings with big eyes. Because once you see, once you know, Shadowslip begins to see you too. And it is very, very hungry.